Okay, welcome back. Last session of the week. Oh my God, man. Good times. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. Okay, so this last session is it's a bit of a catch-all, and some of this stuff you've already heard because we talked about it in Tech Services, Manufacturers Council, etc. So just wanted to update you guys on what we're doing in the tech department, me and Adrian for the most part, and maybe to shed a bit of light on how that has really expanded in the last couple of years. Um, Al Ugalis, when he became tech director, great mentor to me. I've known him for many, many years, and really started that ball rolling of, the association needs more activity in that sort of role, and to expand who we are, what we do, our influence, our connections, our partnerships. So I just want to kind of share some of that, and then I'm going to have Adrian come up, do a bit of an update on a number of things that he's been working on. Again, some of it's a bit of a rehash, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that, because after last night, there's probably a few cobwebs in there where you might have forgotten something that we've said. And then Jomo from Layton Consulting is going to just show us the thermal calculator that we are very, very close to getting live and being part of the Vancouver Building Bylaw compliance path, as well as the province of BC, and we hope to expand it even further. So all I've done for starters is this is just a report that I would typically draft of the activity since Windor of the tech department that is given to the board at each board meeting. I thought that was the easiest way just to kind of bring you guys up to speed on what we're doing. Just going to read it. Tech department staff and consultants have continued to provide. Actually, I'm going to go back. So it's me, of course, Adrian, who's our director of codes regulatory affairs. There he is. JF Kogovsek, residential tech advisor in Central Canada. Rich Pareko, somewhere around here. I saw him just a minute ago. Commercial business development. Jeff Makamoto, commercial tech advisor. He's been on the desk most of today. And then Cam Drew, our business member support, who recently lost his job as president of Fenestration Canada. So was looking for something new. So here he is. Yeah. So the tech department staff and consultants continue to provide member value, resulting in increased member interest and participation, as well as adding to new member growth. We've talked a bit about our growth. It's been significant. They shared numbers at the AGM. We're very, very close to cracking 400 active members. I think it was 378 with about 40 or 50 that are pending, that are going through the renewal process. So we'll be over 400 very, very soon. And I've heard rumblings of 500 by the end of the year, but we'll see how that goes. Commercial chapter held its second annual Glazer conference in Surrey at the Civic Hotel, almost doubled the attendance from last year's inaugural event, being a major success with standing room only all day. We're actively looking for a larger venue in the Metro Vancouver area for next year. Chapter continues to grow nicely. Rich shared some of that. We've seen some rough patches when that commercial chapter first started going. There was a few of the calls where it was, me and Rich were on the call and that was it. But we've seen great activity in the last 6 months or so. More members. We've had some great content, good speakers, good presentations. So that, it's evolving, and we knew it was going to be a bit of a uphill climb, but we're starting to get some good momentum going. Actively, okay, JF's participation in our Central Canada, Atlantic, and Quebec activity continues to evolve, as well as being a great resource on our Hinge Door member recruitment group. So John Grilly talked a little bit about that. We created a group last year, end of last year, the Door Group. So, and it's DOOR, the Door Group, and it is Door Outreach, Organize, and Recruit. Isn't that cool? Acronym that says DOOR. And that's what they're doing. And it's been really great. We've had a lot of interest. We've picked up a number of new Hinge Door members. We've done some great presentations, some technical stuff for them. And John was saying that we did this sort of mini online trade show about 2 months ago that was really, really well received. And we're going to be doing it again. What is that? Mini trade show. Who's that for again? That's you, isn't it, Rich? Aren't we doing that? the recruiting thing for the recruiting group. We're going to do the same idea. We're going to do like a mini next week. Oh shoot, I got to go, man. Is it next? No, it isn't. It's September. Okay. Anyway, the commercial guys have been doing great, and the Hinge Door group is doing really well. So new task groups and new committees that have really started to, draw more members in, get more people involved, because that's what it's all about. We want people involved. So the online tech talks has been very active through the winter and spring. We're committed to doing at least one a month, and I've actually had a couple of months where we've done done 2 in a month. We've got one coming up next week on the PHBI program that Adrian was just talking about. They're going to walk us through it, do a bit of a demo, and look at how that program works. That's on Wednesday, I think it is, at 10 o'clock Pacific time. Recent Hinge Door session, that was the one I was talking about, where we had over 100 people registered for it. Hinge Door members, key growth for 2025. It's definitely a target market for us. We are the Window and Door and Skylight Association in Canada, and the Hinge Door guys have, historically been underrepresented for whatever those reasons are, and I have my suspicions, but they are coming aboard, and we're seeing more and more of them all the time. We continue to be busy, very busy. Busier than I had signed up for initially, and I'm so grateful to have Adrian join us, because we probably wouldn't have any content this week if Adrian hadn't joined us, because there's no way I would have been able to get to it. So really happy to have him aboard, but we are busy. The volume of calls, emails, inquiries coming from members and non-members has spiked in the last 6-8 months. It really has. And that just falls in line with our member growth. So it's great. We have Adrian and myself, and of course the rest of our team, to provide support to members, non-members, people that are interested. It's phenomenal, the growth that we're seeing in the outreach coming to the tech department, and the rest of our team. And from all over, like overseas, we've got, we talk about imports coming in that are not, following the rules. We're getting manufacturers from overseas calling us saying, okay, we're going to import into your country. What do we need to do to make sure that we're on side? So at least that's a good thing. If the imports are going to be here, at least they're going to follow our regulations. So stuff like that's going on. That's really, really, such a good thing to see for us. 400th member, I touched on that. So activities, continue outreach to provinces on the operable guard requirements and WOCDs. The change in the 2020 operable window fall protection created numerous challenges for builders, manufacturers, find solutions where fall protection and egress conflict. CCR now in with the codes review committees. We're going to participate in discussions on that topic, and we hear about it almost weekly now. FinCan is actively lobbying provincial codes administrators, seeing success in Alberta with their stand data allowing WCD devices for fall protection and egress. We're also getting interest from others. The guys in Ontario now are having conversations with us, and we hope to sway them in our favor. Changes to fall protection for window heights have made this a significant challenge for many, many builders. And I shared earlier that Steve Nason in the town of Rothsay, not far from here, put out a bulletin for his town that allows WOCDs for both of those conditions. And that was a direct result of Steve working with us and our input. So that kind of thing really goes a long way. After years of collaboration between Fenestration Canada and PHBI, the Master Certificate Fenestration Installation Training Program has gone live with 4 self-paced courses. Courses are based on A440.4 and provide techniques and insight into new construction fenestration installation, preparing participants for the Fenestration Installer Certification exam. Courses can be found at that website. And again, we're doing a tech talk next week with them, so watch for that. It's a great program, and they were really great in reaching out to us and working with us, and we provided a number of SMEs that worked through that process of generating their content. Involvement in partner and stakeholder organizations continues to develop. We're engaged and always looking for beneficial groups outside of Fenestration Canada. Currently, we have relationships with CFIB, Casey, which is the Energy Advisors, CHBA. I sit on the CHBA Tech Services Committee, RAIC, the Royal Architects, WDMA, PHBI, FGIA/FenBC, NFRC, Ontario Housing, BC Housing, and the British Columbia Building Safety Standards Branch, Municipal Affairs Alberta, Ontario Building Officials Association, and others. And I mentioned, I think it was Brad that we were talking, that network grows almost weekly now. We're getting outreach from all over the place, from people that are interested in what we're doing. So, our influence and impact and outreach in our industry is really becoming the people to go to in Canada. So we're really thrilled with that, to see that kind of activity. Tech Talks webinars, I talked about that. We continue to look for presenters and topics for Tech Talks. So by all means, if you have something that is, niggling you in your region and you want to, have a speaker come and present on it or something like that, just shoot us an email. We'll get it. We'll reach out to them if you have a contact name, and we'll get them on board, and we'll do a 1 hour to 90-minute session with them online so that everybody can benefit from your pain. Okay, I was at Top Class Toronto a few weeks back, did a presentation for them on the calculator that Joan was going to show us. I'm not going to get into that one. The Glass Glazing Recruitment Group has participated in several career fairs around Metro Vancouver. Provides students with information and opportunities in glazing as a career. So under the commercial chapter, there is the Glass and Glazing Recruitment Committee, and their sole goal is to make the next generation aware that there's a career in this industry, and it's been pretty successful. We've had some good stuff. Rich has done a number of high schools, trade fair or career fairs, right? Right, you have a high school, right, next week. September. Yes. Okay. I remembered that. Okay. Good. I thought I was off the rails there. So yeah, we've attended some career fairs. Rich has done some schools, and it's all about it. It's not looking for that guy you're going to hire tomorrow, even though we have opportunities for that as well. But it's to, you show up at a high school and you've got a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds. They have no idea what a glazier is. They don't even know where windows come from, So we're trying to make them aware that there's an industry that all of the people sitting here have a career in. So it's a great life. I'm almost 40 years in this, and it's been a great life. It's been a great career. So, we want to push that out to the next generation because I'm almost done. So somebody needs to fill in, sitting right there. But, build this industry and bring the young people into it. So very, very active, and that group's been really good. Okay. Second annual glazing conference. I already talked about that. It was a great success. We're looking for a bigger venue. Multiple member task groups are active on topics such as on-site product testing, operable guards code language, size-specific thermal modeling, as well as a new group that launched looking at guard glazing requirements in both Part 3 and Part 9. This group received interpretations from BC and Alberta, with discussions ongoing in Ontario. Recruitments for guard glazing within dwelling units will add significant cost to glazing. So what we were running up against is everybody is aware that a window in a stairwell or a landing, below guard height needs to meet those requirements for guard glazing. But there's also language in the building code that is kind of vague that starts out that section 9881, I think it is, that says that's required everywhere in a dwelling unit. So we're trying to get an interpretation of, does this clause that says stairs, ramps, landings, exclude this everywhere comment that is clause 1 in there. And we've had some success. Ontario. Go ahead.
So just quickly speaking, Ontario just put out, or specifically the OBOA, the Ontario Building Official Association, just put out a, they don't call it an interpretation, it's essentially just a document where they're outlining their own opinion on what the code interpretation should be. It's their way of weaseling their way out of an interpretation. But they were explicit about that it's only sections 6 and 7 of 9881 that guard glazing or glazing that needs to meet guard requirements is going to be applicable to. So it does not include the dwelling unit portion of item 1 of 9881. So that's a huge thing that we've been fighting this fight before I started at Vencan, and
Yeah. And
it's really nice to see progress that I think aligns with what is probably reasonable assumptions.
yeah, and this was, I mean, it's always been an issue. I certainly faced it many years ago, but it became a much bigger issue under NBC 2020 because that guard window height went from 450 millimeters to 900 millimeters. So all of those windows that you were putting at 2 feet off the floor, whatever that is in millimeters, did not require this guard glazing requirement. Under 2020 NBC, now it's at 36 inches. So all of a sudden, a lot more windows that fall below that height had the potential requirement of guard glazing throughout that entire dwelling unit. And with large windows like we see them today, that could be a very expensive proposition when you get into it, or a real problem if you build product and then a building official calls you on it that it's not compliant. So working on that. Commercial consultants, Rich and Jeff are increasing their participation in other groups' activities such as Garibaldi Glass Day. Rich was just there last week or so. Vitrum Glass Conference, Zach World of Facades, and others, getting Fenestration Canada's name out with great success. You've done a lot of that. Rich has been just an absolute advocate for our association and the commercial chapter. Wherever you go, I know that you've got your swag on, you're all over LinkedIn, you're posting everywhere. It's been really great the way he's pushing our stuff out. And Jeff, you take Jeff to a trade show where we have a booth and nobody gets past our table without Jeff talking to them. Truly, that guy will talk to anybody. It doesn't matter if they want to talk to him or not. He's been really good. And he's pulled a lot of new members in doing that. He's been very, very effective. So cheers to Jeff. He does a great job. Okay, so commitment to engage with building officials across Canada is ongoing with our free building official membership. I think we have 17 now. So if you're not aware, if a building official is working in Canada, they get free membership as long as they're an active employed building official. So if you've got a building official that you're having to deal with, maybe there's some interpretation issues or, you don't agree with what he's doing or whatever it might be, let him know. He can join for no cost, and he can get education, he can get support, he can provide his feedback, which is always welcome because we want to know what they're thinking. So we want to engage more building officials, and the more that we get into the association, the more we can push to them on the challenges for our industry. Helps everybody. Okay, current task group committee involvement. So participation in the National Codes Development Committees. Before Adrian joined us, you can spend copious amounts of time in code meetings, literally like 6, 8, 10, 12 hours a week you can spend in those meetings. So when Adrian joined us, it was an absolute weight off of me that allowed me to look and focus on other things. So now Adrian spends 6 or 8 or 12 hours a week in code meetings. It can be painful. I sat in one literally for at least an hour and a half, and they were talking about how long the lights should stay on in an accessible bathroom. But you have to sit there through this stuff because somewhere in that meeting, there's going to be some fenestration content if it's on the agenda. And you can't, you need to be there. So you'll have this conversation running in the background while you're trying to do something else. But hour and a half talking about how long a light should stay on. And it wasn't solved in that hour and a half. It was up on the next agenda. So
and to give you something practical,
I'm grateful Adrian's doing that.
The accessibility side, I was on a similar meeting and I had to sit there for about an hour and a half before they got to, we would like to put permanent grab bars in the shower section where people typically put that window.
Right.
And so that was my one moment to say, wait, are you sure? Are you sure that's what you want to do with that particular space? That you have killed the design option, but I have to be there in order to voice our concerns about that.
Yes. And we are there actively, very actively now. So PHBI committee on the installer program. So I've already talked about that. The revival of the Energy Efficiency Fenestration Steering Committee with Enercan. This was a group that was very active with Steve Hopwood and Jeff Baker years ago. It died when Steve left Enercan. And we were able to convince Energy Star and Enercan that was a useful tool for our industry to feedback to them. So Adrian is participating in that group. We're on the A440.2 task group, 0.4 installation task group that has a standard that's pretty much done that can't get published because there's no funding for it. Don't get me started on that one. 0.3, the ER task group. Okay, that's not right. Point 3 is the user guide to point 2. Point 6, the install, high exposure install, CGSB glass standards. We just talked about that. They're updating 3 of the CGSB standards. Adrian sits in all of those meetings. CASE, which is the Energy Advisors Association in Canada. I sit on their technical services committee and support them, trying to help them understand windows and fenestration, and how we can work with them to make things flow more easily. The Fenestration Canada regional chapter, of course. FenCan committee support membership, education, manufacturers, events. Fenestration Canada installer program committees. Oh yeah, CSC. I lost track of the scheme committee. Sorry, yeah, too many acronyms. Installer responsibilities task group, exam task group. Scott, is he in the room here? So Scott, there he is. Just updated this past 6 months or so. We updated the exam for our certification exam online. Did a lot of great work, and Scott pushed that. We went from about 120 questions to 200, 180, 180. So that's great. Got that updated. That was on the list for several years before we got to it. Tech Services Committee support, the Canadian Board for Harmonized Codes. Again, Adrian talked about that earlier. CHBA, Tech Services Committee, member with the Advisory Council. So I sit on that one, the Advisory Council, the construction codes, and it's exactly what it says it is. It's an advisory group that provides input on the harmonized construction codes. The online compliance report tool is live. We talked about it a little bit earlier today, Adrian and somebody we were talking with, can't remember who it was. So that is out there, and it's all about asking you to provide input on what you see in the field for products and projects that have compliance challenges. And it's not about, ratting somebody out. It's about us getting a handle on how bad that issue is, and if it's bad regionally, or if there's something specific going on in a specific region. So we really would like to see people put more information into that and share what they see out in the real world. The JDMG, we talked a little bit about that earlier. I sit on that as part of the CSA contingent for that group that develops NAFs. The Operable Guards Task Group, work in this group has been instrumental in Alberta, so I talked about the WCDs already. On-site product testing, I've talked about that one. Chair the CSA Task Group on AFIR 40.8. I talked about that earlier in one of our sessions, that we're very close to getting a draft, and Ken talked about it in the previous session for the site testing standard under CSA. And then the door organized group, I talked about them. They're doing great work on getting door guys in. So 2025, obviously we're going to continue supporting the task groups and committees, the Tech Talk schedule. Again, we're focused on at least one a month, and happy to do more if we get content. And a new activity that Cam has brought with him in his new role is he's doing podcasts, and it's the business of it all. So Cam is focused on business, the business side of our industry, and finding content and topics and speakers and things that may not fall into what the tech department does. So he's working on that. He's already done a few, right? So yeah, you'll be seeing more and more of those. How's my time? Doing all right? Yeah, okay. Expand member outreach. Of course, we're always looking to find new members. Continue to look for relationships with other industry organizations. We're always thinking about that. Like I said, I just connected with the specifications guys in Canada. Construction Specifications Canada. Thank you. So always looking for groups that are impactful to our industry, and to try and make a connection, and to work with them, and to help them understand, our challenges, and help us understand theirs. Expanding our participation in related industry events. We're trying to get to as many things as we can that are relevant. I was just at the CHBA annual conference in Victoria. Rich has done a number. You were just at BOABC in Victoria, or in Kelowna. So we're always looking to get to events of stakeholders and those that impact our industry. CGSB, I already talked about the glass standards, activities in the regional chapters through meetings, webinars, and in-person events. We talked to the chapter chairs yesterday. We're trying to drive participation at the regional level. That's where, we can get to the people that are right there in that part of the world, and get them involved, and hear from them and what their problems are. So if you have, things in your region, connect with our regional chapter and sit in on some of those calls and bring it to light and support your local industry. Okay, educational opportunities internally, externally. We've been doing some presentation sessions with members and non-members. Some of it is paid activities for me and Adrian. So we'll go and do, I just did one for WD Craftline in Toronto a few weeks ago. I'm doing one for an EA in Alberta in the middle of this month. Doing another one for a member in Toronto this month. You are doing one with on Tuesday up in where's Mike? For Mike, CHB in North. So yeah, so we're doing that as well to try and hit as many different groups as we can. I'm working on the tariff problem, and Adrian's going to talk about that shortly here. Offering our content presentations and education, we're trying to connect with EAs, AHJs, whoever we can connect with to help them understand our issues. Significant uptick in multiple code development committees, increased support in the commercial glazing industry. Building officials at no charge, please, if you are connected to a building official, tell him that he needs to join us. Send him my email. We have a document that kind of outlines what it is. We really want to get those guys involved. Continue to gauge the interest for documents to address things like comfort glazing. Al's document on it is great. We're looking to expand on that. High solar gain, low solar gain issues. The 2 advisory documents, I already talked about that. And yeah, so that's good. So we're busy. There's a lot going on, and we continue to grow. Adrian joining us as a real benefit. Cam now joining us is going to help us on that side of our business. So we are actively moving forward and doing everything we can to support you guys. And to do that, we need to hear from you. So don't hesitate. Terry at fenestrationcanada.ca, Adrian at fenestrationcanada.ca, Rich at Fenestration. Cam's the only one that doesn't. How come you didn't get a FenCan email? You're not here long, right? This is. This is the telephone. Okay, so that's that. Anybody have any questions on that? Patrick, of course. Patrick's always got a question. We love.
Someone's got to start the questions, Terry.
There you go.
Just wondering, what is the actual ask from Fenestration Canada to the provinces on the WOCD question? What is our actual position, and what is the ask to the provinces?
The position is that we believe that a releasable restrictor is a better solution for fall protection as well as egress. And here's the logic behind it. All of us that have been in this industry for a period of time see typical fixed restrictors in the garbage can after the homeowner moves in. It happens all the time. I see windows 3rd story of apartment buildings and they're swung wide open. Well, that there was a restrictor on that window. Well, you hope there was. There should have been. Let's put it that way. They moved. And that was our argument. Maybe it's not as restrictive being a fixed restrictor that you can't release, but when it gets thrown away, there's no protection. So at least these devices, and they're very effective. They relock when you close the window. Very effective and easy to use, right? So that was our position, that we believe it's a safer device. So we drafted a letter to that end with WDMA and FGIA to that end. That's exactly what we said, essentially, in a summary. And that's what we put to everybody we could connect with, all the code bodies that we could connect with, the provincial guys that we could connect with, and that's been the push that we've been carrying, and we've had some success.
Copy paste.
Essentially, I mean, the Quebec language is very clear. It says right in it that you can use an F2090 WOCD right in their building code. That's what we're shooting for. So, I get it. It's child protection, and we've been talking with the guys at BC Building Safety Standards, and they're very, very leery about taking a child safety item from the National Building Code and going against it. They're and I get it. I understand that there's a lot of liability there, right? But the reality is it's a safer device, in my opinion, and pretty much everybody that was in that group that worked on it.
Yeah, when we've been talking about it, I've been referring to it as like a baby gate type of button.
Yeah.
I
really.
feel like that's really what we're dealing with that. Is it's a way for us both to meet that fire protection through egress and making sure kids have a threshold that they have to pass that, my kids suck at baby gate buttons, thank goodness. So I'm the WOCD is really
It's
that much
essentially the
different.
same
It's the same idea.
For sure, right.
Yeah.
And nobody says you can't use a baby gate because it requires special knowledge. Special knowledge. Get me going on that one again.
Absolutely.
They just bounce. They just bounce.
My-
No. I mean, the reality is that kids fall out of windows, and we see it. I get a lot of the trade magazines, obviously, and you see a lot of stories about kids falling out of windows and getting hurt and worse. So we know it happens. There's no question about it. So let's find a way that's a solution for everybody. Because I mean, I'm probably going too far on this, but anyway, the point being is, so the manufacturer puts a fixed restrictor on all the windows that require it in a building, right? The homeowner moves in. Maybe they don't have kids, and they take them off. They're like, what's this thing? Get rid of it. I want to open my window. They move out. Somebody else moves in with a couple of little kids. There's no protection. That's the logic. Anyway, okay, I'm not going to beat that one to death anymore. So, any other questions on what I rambled on about there? Okay. There you go.
All right, I'm going to do my best to run through the pieces we have already talked about. So I'm just going to skip through a couple of these, I think is the way it's going to be handled. But I'm just going to give you a quick update on the couple items I think are relevant for the next version of the National Building Code. We talked about the 1823 solar heat gain maximums earlier. Standards, I'm going to skip CGSB. You guys have heard enough of that. And then I'll give just kind of the last of the U.S.-Canada tariff conversation. It's honestly wrapped up in a nice bow at the moment. Shh.
Excuse me.
I mean, no, not going there. So PCF 1823 is solar heat gain maximums. We went through a presentation earlier. I think this is a good step forward. I think there's still better and best to work towards. But, overall thermal comfort is probably in that category regardless of how we feel about it. Alterations to existing buildings is coming. So that's part 10. This will be kind of a new paradigm for the National Building Code. You really, for this next version, I would say it's pretty simple in the window and door world. The next version in 2030, I have voiced some genuine concerns about our functional statements around it, that how we treat existing buildings probably needs to be different than new buildings. So we're at the beginning of that. I think one of the benefits of me being here is we could have a voice in that avenue. Yeah, I'll be keeping you guys updated as the 2030 codes come through. I would say the two things for us to keep an eye on is going to be some of the embodied carbon conversations around 2030 and the alterations to existing buildings. Both of those are new, and they're going to be fairly disruptive. And based off of who we have in our government, I think both are going to be pushed pretty aggressively. I don't think there's any leniency on that when it comes to affordability with housing. So PCF 1950 and 1951 have to do with essentially instilling a requirement for a sill drainage path. So that's going to kind of force we had language in our code to push the industry in a direction that install was going to be more of a rain screen type of solution. This really forces that. And so if you're not already doing rain screen type of detailing or not installing windows with rain screen detailing in the country, it's coming. This is the end. No more face sealing. PCF 2096 is relevant to us because it's the standard updates, which will include NAFS 22. So I created just a quick timeline of what that looks like as far as manufacturers are concerned. You know, NBC is going to implement NAFS 22 in January 2026, end of this year, give or take. And then between now and June of 2028, manufacturers need to be testing to NAFS 22. Like, you need to start the transition to NAFS 22 for your products. The provinces are likely to adopt, as per the harmonization agreement, which is a charter that all the provinces signed on to, that they are supposed to be adopting the new code in 8 months. I think this is the code cycle that they're actually supposed to be harmonized. But I'm actually really genuinely curious how much of that harmonization we're going to see. I would say like 80% is reasonable. And then I'll give the mic to so manufacturers really need to have so with that, between January 2031 and 2033, manufacturers are going to have to start thinking about testing to NAFS 27. So this gives you a bit of an overview of what to prepare for as far as the testing regimen next. Brett?
Testing. There we go. Sorry. Oh. All right. I guess I agree with what you're saying, but I would want to add a little bit to that.
Sure.
We're going to likely release NAFS 26 mid-year next year.
Agreed.
So when you're testing to 22, you might as well test to 26. Then you don't have to circle back around, right? And test to that once that may get adopted. So always think about having multiple test standards that you're testing to for efficiency.
That is an excellent point. So agreed that when you get into that testing, it's actually a good idea to go ahead and incorporate that 2026 testing. And this is the difficulty, I think, with NAFS testing overall. Equivalency, a lack of equivalency language kind of leaves us in a position where if the code specifies a particular standard year, you're going to have that testing available in order for you to be code compliant. There's some conversations from the lab when it came to equivalency, but it's not. Your best bet is to make sure that you are tested for the appropriate year, and it's way less costly to you as a manufacturer to test once for both standards than it is for you to test twice.
When you're going to the lab, you should always be asking your lab if there's a new version that's available.
Totally.
Thank you. Quick question and maybe a comment. Right now we have NAFS 17 and we have NAFS 22 as the current version. You have to specifically ask for NAFS 17, which is a code reference, correct? And then next year we have NAFS 26. So we could go to the lab mid next year, if I recall, and test to 3 different NAFS standards to be code compliant. NAFS 17 will get you until, maybe specifically speaking about BC, NAFS 17 it's referenced.
Yep, until June 2028.
It's not the current version of NAFS. So they're going to go to NAFS 22 unless you specify you need NAFS 17. So when NAFS 26 becomes available, is that going to be the current version? If so, you might have to do 17, 22, 26, and then you should be covered maybe.
Yeah, until 33.
33. Right. For the manufacturers that tested before NAFS 17 was the current version, some of them could have blew their budget and then had to redo it all again because previous version's not accepted.
I just want to point out to everybody here, if you're not aware, NAFS 22 does away with A3 air leakage. So there's a lot of specifications that contain that A3, and it's not going to be available in NAFS 22. So
It's report only, right? Just report your air leakage. You don't
just report it. Now they'll want to see your test report to see what the actual air leakage was if they're trying to continue to specify that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share something I learned too late probably in my time in manufacturing was if you got a relationship with a lab and you have your own booth that does air, water, and structural, they can come to your facility and witness your test and write you a report. So if you want to do more testing and reduce your costs, there is a way to deal with this. And so I something I just wanted to share with everybody. Talk to your lab and see what they can do, because it's a game changer in reducing your testing costs.
Absolutely. But you keep your booth certified for like it. There's a bit of a process there, but agreed.
Yeah, and so at our Calgary facility, we are setting up a proper NAVS test wall probably by the end of July. And it's for that reason and others, because you need to do quality control testing of your largest sizes and stuff like that. Otherwise, you won't know where you're at until you get field water tested. And then you find out that the 4-light, like the 16-foot wide sliding patio door with the transom, doesn't get 290 water. It only gets 260.
All right. Groovy. All right. We already talked about CGSB. Again, heat strength and glass is the big thing to keep an eye on. As I mentioned, NAFS 26 is going to be rolling through. I honestly take the standpoint, we do have input we can add to CSA, but I would argue that 26 is capped off. Like we're at a place where it is unrealistic to expect that there is additional comments that are going to matter to the next round. That's a kind of pessimistic of me, but I think that that's just the truth. So that kind of leaves us with the next version of NAFS as our focus, and that's where our NAFS future group is open to members. We've got, I think we had about 15 or so. So anybody interested in joining that group, we're kind of restructuring the NAFS language. That's our goal is to figure out what would work for the Canadian market.
Can you add me to that group? I don't think I'm on there yet.
Deal.
No, I'm not on there. No, you can't add me.
I'm pretty sure you're on the email thread, Dave. So, all right, I'll go into tariffs, and for my sake, I will make this as quick as humanly possible. So unless there is questions, and please stop me, I'm happy to go into the details of this. So there is a general remission process. This is probably the one worth talking about the most to this group, because I've got new information on that. So general remission process, you're putting in for a specific product that is assigned to the counter tariff lists. So like steel and aluminum and the first list of counter tariffs. If you have an item on there that is you're being impacted, this is how you would deal with that process if it is not an input. So input for the federal government right now, and loosely defined, is you're adding value to that product when it came into the country. So if you got a door slab and you're going to have to, drill the, you're going to have to make any modifications to it, that's adding value to that door slab. If you are, we have one manufacturer I was talking with, the path that they're trying to take with it. I'm actually jumping over to the 6-month remission. So maybe I'll take a pause on that. So anything that is not a value add to those products, you can do a general remission. So this is the checklist of things that are involved in going through a general remission. It's a pretty big, it winds up being a pretty big submission. One thing Fenestration Canada can do, what I can do for you, is that if you send me the remission information you have, I can write a letter of support for that general remission. I think there's value in us as an association supporting, products that you're struggling with when it comes to import. So if you have anything that you are not adding value to when it comes in, meaning you're acting as a distributor for that product and then it's going to your customer, let me know if there is something I can help you with on the general remission side. I will say, based off of my conversations with our lobbyist team, the Department of Finance is not looking at this list very seriously right now, that they are essentially ignoring it because there's too many inputs right now for general remission. So they're relying on the 6-month remission process. So the 6-month remission process is going to be good for, it's for goods that were bought between March and October this year. and it's a pretty simple process, though I have heard some things during this conference that for those that have been trying to get money back on products that they brought in and they paid the remission for, or they paid the tariff for, they're not getting a lot of feedback on that money back. So I'm gonna have to do a bit of looking for those manufacturers, and I'll be providing a bit of an update if there's anything new there. But you're going to add your OIC code to the CARM portal, or your broker is going to be adding the OIC code to the CARM portal. And it's an automatic removal of the tariff or duty on that item. So it's a manufacturing code that you're adding. It is a pretty simple process, and it's way better if you can catch it before the thing comes in. So it just becomes a non-cost. Instead of going through the backlog, because what I heard from manufacturers the last couple of days is that the payback process is kind of clunky. I would guess that's kind of what I see. Also, if you are trying to claim something like a K32, which is I'm going to buy a product from the US, it's coming into Canada, and I'm going to send it back to the US, you can't do both the 6-month remission and the K32 for that thing. You can't hit both of the, call it, processes for reducing tariff requirements. And then the claims can be up to 2 years. So if you missed it for the last couple months, like this is the first time you've heard about the OIC codes, you've not put it in your CARM portal, you can actually go back and get a claim for that back. As I was kind of saying, I think it's probably clunky at the moment is my guess, but I'll do more research on that and figure out what's going on and see if there is some input we can get from the government on that. I'm honestly waiting on the CBSA, and have for the last 4 weeks, on clarification to the minister's order that defined this. It wasn't well written. I think there's a lot of interpretation, and it really bugs me that there is. So we've been told for weeks now that we should be getting the CBSA's interpretation. As soon as I have that, I'll be sending an email out to all of you so you know exactly what to expect from it. And but yeah, that kind of wraps that up. Is there any questions before I move on from that?
As always. So to be clear, if you've done this 6-month remission with your product, you are now never going to be able to do general remission.
Well, interesting question. That's an excellent question. I don't know.
There you go.
Let me look that up.
Because that could look, I don't think the general remission thing is ever going to become very relevant for this, because it has those clauses in there about you have to show no Canadian equivalency and disproportionate economic impact. So this is like for somebody making something out of the Muskoka white pine that you could only get in Canada, and so maybe you could get an exemption on that. But I mean nothing that we sell is in that category. There's it's not like that.
I think so, though. I think it'll be interesting to see once the 6-month remission is up, if the Department of Finance decides not to renew it, which right now the government has been asking. So the federal government, specifically like Prime Minister's office, has been asking for the Department of Finance to reconsider the decision for it to be a 6-month temporary thing. They might extend it additionally, and that might be a simple solution to that. But yeah, I can see the relevant risk in claiming the OIC code as an easy thing to do, and then once the 6-month is up, do you wind up having essentially immediate conflicts with your account? Because I have no idea. It's an excellent question. I don't know what the risk looks like around that. But yeah, any other questions? I think the 6-month remission has been the biggest breath of fresh air for me. Steel reinforcing, aluminum profiles, door slabs. Most of our industry that was impacted by the tariffs, you can work through it with this. And even if your customer is the one adding value to the product, I was talking with a manufacturer that I think made a good argument that you could get a letter from your customer that added value to that product in Canada. So like a door slab, for instance, that you're going to put a door handle in, because you're not You're not going to ship the door with the door handle on it. That's ridiculous. So you know, if you're going to put the door handle in once it's being installed, as long as you've got a letter that said there was value add to that product, I think that means intent. And the lawyer that that manufacturer talked to was in alignment with that. The lobbyists that I talked to were unsure, and until we get CBSA interpretation, none of us will know. So yeah. So with our lobbyist team, Maple Leaf Strategies, we're coming up to the end of our agreement with them. So with the last month with them, I am working on letters to the Prime Minister's office and to the various ministry heads about float glass specifically. That I'm asking the government of Canada to help support us figuring out float glass in Canada. That we need to figure out that path. If I had to put priorities down at the moment, if we don't figure out how to produce our own glass in the future, take a step back. It was 4 years ago when we had a supply disruption change that broke our IGU markets. I don't like, for the manufacturers here, it was awful, and it is unnecessary. We produce that. We have plenty of sand in Canada. We have absolutely the energy we need to do this. One of the few things we're missing is soda ash. Like, you can only get soda ash in Montana or Turkey, and you can get some synthetic stuff out of China. But there's not a lot of great options. And there is actually a really nice mine in Montana that we could pull it from. But so the next step really is getting the attention of the ministers on this subject. I'm getting some good initial feedback that they are emailing back saying that they have received our letters and they are interested in having a conversation. They are not planning meetings yet. But hopefully now that the King's speech is done, there'll be a bit more engagement. So that's kind of what our next steps are with them. And that will wrap up this year's conversation with the lobbyists. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end of the year with the board on what we want kind of that government engagement will look like in the future. I think we had a very specific thing we were trying to nail down this time. There might be use cases for being a bit closer to the federal government. So if something like that happens again, Fenestration Canada can represent you as well as we did this time. So, any questions or comments to that before I move on? I so appreciate the support. This was not a cheap thing or easy thing to do. Your member fees absolutely paid for us to go do this and for my time to go do this. I really appreciate the support as we went down that road. As Terry was mentioning, we've been working on code authority relationships. That is honestly one of my core focuses, and this was before the tariffs. And so it's kind of nice to go back to that avenue and go spend time with those guys, because the more integrated we get with the AHJs, I think the better some of these conversations about the application of codes and standards is going to get. And, you know, they're fun groups to actually spend time with. I think they're easygoing about this. They want to learn. They want it to get better because they see problems too. So, yeah, I'm very encouraged by the type of feedback we've been getting. So, yeah, that's it for me.
Questions for Adrian?
Are we going to talk about the court decision? What was it today, yesterday? Suspending the tariffs?
No.
No,
Was it today?
that was this morning.
Court blocked it. I did read about that.
U.S. court delivered a sharp rebuke to President Donald Trump. Upshot for trading partners, including Canada. This is CBC I'm reading off. Certain specific tariffs on steel and aluminum remain in place, but gone for now are sweeping levies on entire countries. The order from the U.S. Court of International Trade quashes the 10% across the board tariffs on most nations. That's not us. But his declaration of fentanyl emergency to impose 25% tariffs on numerous Canadian and Mexican goods is suspended for now.
I read a little bit this morning about that. I
Yeah.
will be honest, because I'm a little jaded from the whole experience.
I know.
I
know.
I hear you.
But it's
I
off for now
also-
pending appeal.
I've also seen some constitutional crises start in the U.S. And I'm not quite to the point where I'm willing to accept that is what the true outcome.
So you think Trump's going to order the border guards to imply the tariffs?
Nope,
And
your words, not mine.
okay.
I understand what Trump's going to do at all, but I will suspend my opinion on it until I see it. That has been a rule of thumb in this whole experiment.
Wait for the official word, because nothing is official until it's official.
So let's do the experiment and try to ship a window down there and see if it gets tariffed.
Now, it's covered by the CUMSA agreement. Non-issue.
Oh, right.
But you no longer have favorite. The trick would be you send down under favored
Without
nation.
the favored nation.
Yeah, so you do it without the favored nation. So quick summary for anybody that's, I will finish this so that calculator can happen. But just because it's interesting, favored nation is kind of how we were shipping everything down to the States. It was a lazy way for the brokers to be able to bypass the paperwork necessary to actually use the trade agreement that we had in place. And with the tariff items, you have to use the trade agreement in order to get the exemptions. Otherwise, there was a blanket tariff on place. So, you wound up with just more paperwork in order to validate it. So the argument is, if we were to send a product down to the US right now and you were to say, I'm going to go ahead and use favored nations again, if you got a 10% tariff, then it tells me that the tariffs didn't go away. If they accept the 2% favored nations cost, then it has gone away. So it's a good experiment. If somebody wants to do that with their product and deal with the nonsense of that, it sounds terrible, but...
All right. Good to go. Thanks, Adrian. Appreciate it. So the dreaded last slot of the day. And look at the crowd, man. I'm impressed, you guys, the diehards. That's awesome. After last night, I was hoping everybody would have left and I could have gone to bed. I'm kidding. So welcome to our buddy. I just noticed that Layton sponsored the iced coffee station. I didn't know that. So well done.
So if you're feeling tired,
grab an iced coffee and juice yourself up a bit. Jonathan has been a key player in the activity around the development of this and the discussions with the City of Vancouver and the province of BC. So I'm going to let you do your thing and demo what this thing does.
sounds good. Thanks everybody for those that have been a part of the conversation already. Some of this is old hat.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you that maybe are missing context of why we got to here, you can ask me. I'll give it a little summary first. But apologize I'm last here. But this has been a kind of a 2-year thing to get to this point. I think it started with an email between Dave, you, and I, and Anton of just what just happened at the City of Vancouver. Yeah. So just to give a little bit of what's happening, we're seeing it actually across Canada where tiered models or performance models are basically replacing prescriptive. But in British Columbia specifically, there was a document called the City of Vancouver Energy Modeling Guideline, and there's a change in the wording in the 2018 BCBC, which made that actual document that the City of Vancouver had the governing document. And for fenestration, they had 2 paragraphs, and one paragraph was a copy and paste of something in the NFRC manual about U value and solar heat gain, and then the other paragraph specifically called out not wanting labeled values, but that you could do weighted average calculation and simplified by just having your worst case window. Project specific. Yeah. So it led to this whole chaos of people. It didn't define how to do weighted average. It didn't define what the worst case window was. Is the worst case your NFRC value casement, or does someone go around a site? Well, we had a project. Someone went to site and that's the smallest window. That's your worst case. Everything's being applied to the entire project. So it was a mess to start off with. And we essentially, from my own position, we've been doing thermal modeling for people for a long time as a sim lab. We help people with certification, but what we really got into, is it down? There we go. We did site specific thermal modeling all the time. And we, took into account every single mullion and reinforcement and all the things. And we would basically do models of an entire building And when it was just like the odd tower that someone's like, hey, I want to make sure I get values right because there's an energy model on this and end users are using it. I got the budget to spend a couple $1,000s, model my stuff. I'll do these again and again. So you've already got the models. We could somewhat pencil it out, I would say, but it just became everything. Every single project, we want this site-specific model. And Adrian, you were one to say it was like shoving money into a fire pit. And you would, every project, and your estimators have already ran everything, you've done everything, and you find out you don't pass. And if you've started fabrication, like it was a nightmare.
Where at the end of the project, the modeler came back and said, you know, we need project-specific modeling, and they called out energy modeling guideline, and we had already manufactured the windows. So the threat was that if the modeling didn't come back in accordance with the project, we were going to have to change the glazing on $480,000 worth of windows. The risk was absolutely bananas.
Yeah. And then another thing is that the city had outlined essentially how they used to have a path kind of to show compliance. The newest version of the City of Vancouver Energy Modeling Guideline has established a path A, which is basically showing your certified values, but they have put that they're sunsetting that. There's no longer going to be permitted. And then path B is this tool or following the procedure of weighted average with certified values. And then the last one is if you don't have stuff, you actually do have to do site specific. So when we kind of considered all the pros and cons, it basically came to the conclusion like, wrong way, sorry. Like as these performance models are replacing prescriptive, like why are we doing certification anyways? Like if the City of Vancouver Energy Modeling Guideline literally says, we don't want that. We do not accept your certified values. Well, why are we doing it? And I was already doing site specific for importers because they don't have NFRC stuff. And essentially we came at this point where I said, we all as a group, as an industry need to protect our product. And there is a method that exists in certification that is part of that we've tailored how we design, how we estimate and our energy and performance that's different from other places that we can't just throw away because then we lose all the work and knowledge that we've done. But then we create this whole new thing of, well, how do we know what your performance is compared to this one? We're not comparing apples to apples. It just becomes this game. And essentially there's some conversations with the people at NFRC. Jeff Baker has been huge key in this. He wrote a paper probably 20 years ago about how to scale your sizes with your knowns, your center of glass value, and your final product values. And essentially came down to these three metrics. As long as you know the U factor, the solar heat gain, and the visible transmittance of the full product and the center of glass, and because you know the actual certified product, you know the size that it currently is, the size and kind of the ratio because of how the size works, you can scale it. There's a whole bunch of math on that. I have a whole nother presentation on that, but this is just, not this. Yeah, I know. So what do we have till 6:30 tonight? Yeah, I know. So this is the tool. Essentially, it's designed to basically linear walk anyone through who has their product certified to be able to take in as many window types, as many products as you possibly could have in a building, put it together, and it will generate a report that gives a very close, I should say a conservatively accurate number of what your values are going to be. And I'll touch on that at the end. So I've already kind of started this out. I just took a project. It's got a name. You put your address in. You can add pictures of the projects. You put in your manufacturer's name, address. If you're a dealer, you can put in the dealer name, address, and you can put in as many as you need. So say you're bringing in different products from different manufacturers as well. You can add as much as you need in there in order to post that. So it's being able to be verified of what's installed on site. If you can see on the bottom here, there's like a previous step, next step. So for this particular job, I have 3 different types of glazing. And then for that, I just click, essentially just click here, add IGU. And for this, I just built this in the window, the current NFRC window database. And it spits out, like I said, the U factor, so Lee KNT Viz. I know some people don't have access to this or may not have access to their labs. There is an eventual version we're working on that can pull some of this information, or you can get it from the IGU manufacturer. But this is basically on the center of glass value, 1 meter by 1 meter for all the glass that we would use. And you can have all the different configurations that you want. So for this one, I just put in GL1, then I can pick my type. If you go to other, if it's not listed here, you can type in whatever you need to have. And then I'm inputting essentially right from that window data into the center of glass values. Also, you can see it says unit system. So if you have it in metric or imperial, you can switch back and forth. You can actually switch back and forth throughout the whole spreadsheet. So it's not like you have to start with one based on how the site decides to measure things. And I have some videos. I'm just trying to remember. I hope can I touch screen? Does it work? Nope. Nope. The next one's coming up. So I've just put in, is there a mouse? Where's the mouse? Where are you, mouse? There we go. Okay. I'll click the video when it comes up. Perfect. So I've inputted my GL1. For this one, I just did the one just to show that you could put in as many as you want. And now I'm going to add my products. So for this particular one, hopefully I've left out all client information here, but this is the matching the exact glass that I just put in, but this is their fixed window, the values they have certified. And as many of you know, we have table 4.3 with NFRC. We're harmonized with CSA. These are specific sizes that these are all based on. So it'll be your labeled values. And yes. So now I'm just going to put in whatever your series name is, whatever you call it, so that you can see if someone was looking at the label on the window, it would match. I put in my NFRC, CSA. I can put in whatever my listing number or CPD number is. Pick my unit. And I'm just typing in exactly what's on the label. Perfect. No, next one. Do it. There we go. All right. So I've built number one. And then the other thing to show on that is, let's say we have someone, Jomo window here, has an uncertified product. He's, whether it's imported or new, and he wants to use it in this equation. If you go and you're like, oh, I don't have my thing, it automatically stops you. There's essentially redirects you to Fenestration Canada to help you understand, hey, this is where you can go. This is how you get certified. Yes, it's true that someone could put in, because it's all user input right now, they could just say, it's NFRC and make up a CPD number. But you'd have to follow up with making sure that that is what you nefariously put on the label and all that tracking that goes along with that. So here I just built the three different systems. And so what you're essentially doing is you're building first your database of your IGU. So you could have 100 different IGU types, 2, 3, 1, and then all the frames that you're using on the same project. I don't know if I had anything on there. Yeah. And so for this particular project, I just grabbed the south elevation, and to show that now I'm going to my geometry. So I built my database, and there's two different ways in which this geometry can be selected. So when you open up geometry, it's either going to show elevation mode or whole building mode, and you can choose. So if you pick elevation mode, you must put in an elevation. The reason why we did put that option in there is part of the Solahike conversation, to be honest with you, is I want to see perhaps there's an elevation that should be different. I'm identifying some of the issues that could be there, or I'm just going to do the whole product as a whole. And you can go back and forth. The only thing is, if you want data to show up as elevation, you have to select it. it'll auto put it in as all north elevation if you don't. And then also to keep in mind with geometry, because we're scaling the certified size, we have to keep that kind of full product frame. So for this particular window, when it's scaled from the certified values, it would be 2 fixed windows. And I know there's like half a frame. And when we would do thermal modeling, which would be expensive and take quite a long time, I could model half a frame, but in this particular version, it's two separate frames because we're scaling from the certified values. So all you need to know is your width and height of each individual window component, and then also the quantity. So for this, you would put in like this. If this is one window, then you only have to put in one of each. This, every time you put in one component of it, you also have to say, hey, there's 35 of this whole configuration, orientation, and everything. So I need to put 35 quantities for each of those. So here I'll add a geometry to show. So and this drop down is only populated by what you put in. So if it's not in there, you didn't put it in earlier. And the tag is optional. You can see I have stuff up there already. If you want to outline a particular thing, either for yourself to make it easier for people to read the labels on site, it's just whatever your production installer, what would be helpful to them, or even the architect to be able to help identify which window. And again, I'm just selecting again from the same list that I've already populated. Pick a different. Just showing that you can switch back and forth based on metric or imperial, and that you don't have to have a tag. You can just skip that option. And adding another one. So, oh, come on. Let me skip this. So here I've populated, I'm not related to the job anymore. I was just using that as an example, but I just put in a whole bunch of different, some fix, some casement, some side hinge doors here on this one. And at the end of it, you get a summary. So you can see essentially what this is like the total area of each particular product gets a U value of its own. And then we then take the percentage of each of those total areas to get an overall U value, an overall solar heat gain and VT. If you did it with elevation mode, you would see it per elevation. So you'll see all the components that are going in, and then each elevation, and then finally at the bottom, a total. It's also a good check to see if we have errors. I think that's the only complaints we've really had have been user input errors, which we'll address, but this is a good way to check to be like, okay, am I something off, something going on? Did I put something in wrong? I've seen where we didn't put the solar heat gain was a whole number and it just gave you an error here. That was me who actually figured that one out. And then at the end, it actually, if you see right here, it says generate PDF. You could save it, get downloaded, and it just, like I said, the intent is this like linear get to a project report where you have the picture of the project, name, address, the date generated, and then manufacturers, gives you all the IGU data, the product data. You can see I have some NFRC, some CPD, obviously not real numbers, and then the geometry data throughout the entire project. Again, that would be separated by elevation if that was how it was. But what this allows you to provide on site, and what we're training architects and building inspectors to look for is, are the windows that are in matching the CPD numbers and the listing numbers? Okay, I want some level of verification that the whole industry is deciding to actually utilize our certification values. And at the very end of it, you'll get a product glazing summary where what we found is the number they actually want. What's your U value? What's your solar heat gain for the whole project? Or another way, I must have a minimum of this and a maximum of that. Do you hit it? Here you go. So is it accurate enough? That's a question we've had a lot. So we've been playing with it for quite a bit. where we've taken old projects where we've been really, really specific on the modeling, going through every little additional element, reinforcing, split mullions, and what am I trying to call it? Combination product. And it's really close. I've actually been surprised at how close it is and how accurate that it is. Now, is it going to solve every single thing? No. But in conversations that we've had with other stakeholders in BC, it's like, can we solve 85%? If you've got some funky window with some crazy reinforcing, like, sure, let's get that modeled. Like, we'll go down that route. But for the generic fill in the hole, even curtain wall, everything can be built in there as long as you're selecting the right thing and giving the values as per they would be modeled. It's really dang close. And so the overarching goal is to enable the manufacturer who's done the work, done the effort, to make the right decisions at the bidding stage and not at the, Layton, can you figure out if this passes? Because I don't like saying it doesn't work at all. And that's happened. We've had projects where I basically have to go to the architect and say, the design of the windows is preventing you from hitting the target that you've given. And they can say, oh, well, I can get it from so-and-so, and they'd promise this. And it's like, I appreciate all the things you're being sold on, but at the end of the day, you only have so much window to wall ratio for your energy model and only so much frame to glass ratio. And that you have made decisions so early on that and not had it checked that now we're stuck. And nobody likes that. So that's about it. On that tool, I'll take questions.
Well, and just one comment. We talked to the Toronto Green standard, and the language that started this journey is in their language.
Yeah.
They verbatim copied that language. So Terry and I are in conversations with them right now on what we can do to support a better direction with that. I look forward to going back to that once we get we get back from this.
Yeah. Point being is that this is not just a Vancouver, BC item. You're going to see it spread across the country as it gets adopted initially in Vancouver and British Columbia.
Yes. Do you think the expectation will be that it'll be the window manufacturer who will be responsible for producing this report?
I wish it wasn't, to be totally honest with you, but I think it is already expected.
Well, because we're going to have the data.
Yeah, you have the data, and the specification has gotten to the point where it says meet code requirements and like as a catch-all statement, right? Well, some things aren't, it's even in the BCBC, it doesn't clearly say you have to have a certified product. So you just have to have a model to the procedures and methodology of NFRC or CSA. So the challenge is like, well, they don't understand the relative connectedness. I call Windows a Rubik's Cube. I think I've told some of you already to this, and you've seen other presentations. If you focus on a single thing, which is like the Solahikane conversation we have, it's as if they think they can dial different metrics, but it's so interconnected, and you can't flip one thing and not have it affect the other. And so because there's this relative lack of understanding of what those actual metrics can do, I don't know how you can offload that to another party.
And I think you'd want to have that control anyway.
Yeah.
And once you're proficient, you can do a pretty complex, large project in hours.
Oh, less.
Yeah. It's quick. It's really quick.
We basically, to give some generic on us, that building there, I actually haven't done, but it's comparable to the one that would probably take, if I had never modeled their stuff before, 2.5 days. And I probably could do that in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this going to be an online tool or something that people can install on their computers?
It will not be something that you install at a local machine. It's going to be hosted on FenCan's website. We're still working with Jomo on the finer details, but we hope to have it live this summer for people to start working with it. It won't be a compliance pathway until September 15th in Vancouver, and then hopefully early in 2026 in the province of BC. But it'll be hosted on FenCan's site and open for members to use and for non-members to use as well.
So
a particular user, would they be able to, because it's an online tool, are they going to have to input their data every time they do a report, or can they save some data?
You can save some, but it saves it to your browser. So, you can save sort of your last session. There isn't a version capability yet.
Not yet. Version
Yeah.
1.
Yeah, this is
was-
version 1.
So just to give some stuff, for our task group had till last week to try and troubleshoot and break it. And from the responses I got, all of the breaking was user input errors. So our next goal is actually a user guide. There is currently a video where I walked people through, but we'll also have videos to go with the user guide. So when version 1 is skookum, then we start talking version 2.
Do other
Yeah.
So one thing, Terry, to the point of it not being code compliant, because of the weakness of just calling out NFRC or CSA 440.2 compliant, specifically NFRC, and I think we had the conversation about I think NFRC, at least, if you're certified through NFRC's path, the methodology for the size-specific modeling is included as part of theirs. So you technically are compliant to use the size-specific modeling for projects, but you still have to have a label with standard size compliance. But you can use this information for projects all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. You would need to have that conversation with whoever it is that's making the final say on what's being accepted, of course. But you're right. If you've got products that are labeled that are not within the spec requirements, and you can provide this as, no, these are size-specific calculations, and now I'm within spec, that would be a compliance pathway as long as it's being accepted by whoever it is on the project that's dealing with that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I was going to say, similar to a story you told about post-manufacturing site-specific calculations, my first baptism into this was bid on a project, spec said provide product per NFRC. We did that. We won the project. Goes into the shop drawings get rejected because somebody decided now they wanted project specific, and it triggered a whole job to go, once it was done, from double to triple. And I had to work it out contractually and ended up walking away from the project. That's the consequence of this type of thing. So the transition of this is spooky. Teach your estimators how to read specs.
Yeah.
It's 5 words in a spec book that's this thick, and if you don't read it correctly, it'll cost you a certain amount to do the work, and it could cost you huge in being non-compliant. And that's where it's very hard to go after projects knowing what you have to do this calculation as you bid on a project. And that's sort of the consequence of it. The second one I just wanted to say is manufacturers, like Dave's question, manufacturers are being asked to do this. It's a design value that, in my opinion, fits into part 5. And talk to your insurance company. You may not be able to do this as a manufacturer. Your insurance might not let you do this because it's technically a design value that comes with, if it's wrong, and if you did the calculation wrong, and the building doesn't perform properly, someone's going to look backwards and go, oh, there was an error here, or some assumption made. And I know there's manufacturing insurance that you can have that will apply if you produce something that's out of spec. So there is an errors and omission like in the world of engineering, but there's an errors kind of insurance policy. But currently the energy advising community is not regulated by professional governance. It's through the architect.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a bit of a muddy, I bring it up because it's going to be very, very muddy in regards to accuracy, responsibility, and overall performance at the end of the day. But we're getting there. I think it's a really good tool.
And I think I just want to reiterate something, because there's been a lot of meetings, lots of bodies, governing bodies in BC have been involved at this point, but everyone has now come to the agreement that this is not a BC tool. They recognize that if we're going to put forward something, allow something to be forward to the industry, that we need to look at it from a national side. So even if it's not something you're necessarily facing right now, but one of the biggest advocates that I am of this kind of tool is that it does create a layer of liability to the actual certification. Because what's happening in the past is manufacturers were putting forward reports, and there was all sorts of ways to do weighted average, and there was all sorts of information. And It's scarily how many times we have been asked, specifically by the city of Vancouver, but also by city of Calgary, once by Kelowna, twice by Whistler, can you check these thermal values? And I would say 80% of them are wrong, not significantly, but the ones that are significantly wrong, it's like this product is not passing, or this product actually isn't certified.
Yeah.
I don't know where they
Wow.
got this number from.
Have a look at anybody's NFRC certified label, and there's a disclaimer on it that says this isn't right.
Yeah.
So, you know,
But
I mean, really,
but
they all say that. There's a disclaimer that says this value may not represent this product.
But I do think it's beneficial to the manufacturers that if you generate a report and somebody calls into question, you say, I literally used certified values
Yes.
by another body.
Yep.
If you disagree, if you're upset with how this window's performed, that's as clear as I could get. That's not my responsibility to make sure it's certified.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's my responsibility to make sure it's certified, not to make sure that I don't govern how they certify it. So that's it. If I could add one more thing. Oh, go ahead. Well,
No, I can wait.
okay. I was just going to say, speaking a little bit on version 2, I actually think this bleeds in. So that was like the goal of our task group was to get to this. There is a next push that I envision and I see with Fen Canada where CSA does not currently have a database like NFRC does. Oh, and NFRC has been pretty willing to talk about allowing data
Scrubbing
to be
their
pulled.
data.
I mean, they do have a calculation tool as well, but it's one window at a time. And right now it's not public. It's only available.
No,
to-
it is.
Oh, it is public now?
It is.
Oh, it is.
Yep.
Wasn't a month ago.
is.
So it's one window at a time. So it's the same math. All we're doing is putting it together for an entire project. And but with the goal to create the CSA database for manufacturers who are going to go that route of certification, to basically make it so that you can, Dave, as you said, pull right from that information, or save what you've done before, so that you automatically have your own internal database of the product that you have. So that's version something.
Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere down the road. All right. We're good.
Just maybe a quick comment and then a question. Watching the video, you're using the tool, you're inputting values for a glazing package based off of NFRC certification. I think you had some 6 mil and some 8 mil in there. It could be anything really. If you're inputting a manufacturer's certification values in there, let's say they have a double glazed IGU 4 mil. Inside of a building, that window may need to meet a guard load requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Interior pane is now 6 mil tempered. They don't have a certified value for a 4 mil, 6 mil. What do you do?
It is true. And that's a consideration that we have to go down. Yeah, because you do have to, the tool can actually tear. I think that was the one
I
error
broke
that you
it.
found.
Yeah. I broke it by putting in a unit that was not what was being used in the certified value.
So
I think I put in a
yeah.
dual instead of a triple or something.
So it was like there was enough. Everything that you put into a calculation, even you need a calculator, garbage in, garbage out. But the tool, it has some redundancy that it can tell when the spread is too large. So it'll just give you an error. But yeah, if you don't have a product that's certified, there is the next consideration is to say, can we put in a thing where this product, we have a certified product of this, but we don't have this value. So we've assumed the value here because it's the closest that we have certified. So that is something that's another version, another input that we're considering. There's also, the concept of like dealer specific databases that we or manufacturer specific, or then there's also, we could essentially in talking to NFRC, because it's probably people here have heard of Leaf. There's another thing coming that we've also done some submittals for called CTA, which does allow for some kind of generic, what would you say, using some base values. So we essentially just figure out how much discrepancy there is in the value, and you can kind of say like, this is the middle line of what that is. So we are kind of waiting for, like I said, because we're relying on this other certification body, kind of getting the go ahead to say, yeah, we're okay with that. And then I put it in to how the tool works. So
All right. Anything else for Jomo?
Do you think it will be necessary to have some kind of disclaimer?
Yes.
To
100%
protect
there will be.
Fenestration Canada
Yep.
from liability and
Absolutely.
Layton?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
You've ironed that out yet, or?
We have a draft text of it on it. Yeah,
Okay.
but we'll have it reviewed and make sure it's covering our
bolded,
bases and bolded and highlighted.
colored. Yeah.
Shooting stars coming out
Like
of it.
pulse-
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, we'll certainly protect ourselves and make people aware that, it's really on them to make sure that they use the tool appropriately and correctly, right? So
And I noticed that you had the choice of, what did it say, metric?
metric or imperial, yeah.
Metric or imperial?
And you can
maybe-
toggle back and forth.
You maybe should just use IP.
I know. I already got in trouble with somebody.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
fought a war over this. And that was it.
Because IP doesn't actually stand for imperial.
I know.
It's the U.S. customary system is what it is, because they fought a war in 1776 or something.
It was Dave who
Yeah, that's right.
I know. We all
It's
say
way-
imperial. What does it
it-
stand for?
all the input is being reviewed and looked at. So any feedback that you can give us once you get access to it, for sure.
I just think the end goal is to raise the industry to a united standard where we can all go into things saying, we at our estimating, at our bidding, at these stage, here's how we believe this is going to perform. Here's how we've come up with the designs to perform. Is everyone else able to provide that?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's gotten interesting to see where architects write in European metrics and stuff in their spec, saying must meet this. It's like we really need to ensure that we are supporting the code standards that we already have, but B, and I think more truly, the industry that we have. We are all in this together. We may be competitors in some sense, but if we're at least going apples to apples, and you can be verified, and that you're going with people who can verify, then I think we all sleep a little bit better, and we can run our businesses a little bit better. So that's it.
Good. Jomo, thank you. All right, the diehards, you stuck around for the whole thing. I'm impressed. Give yourselves a hand. That's great. I love it. So that concludes our education content for this year's AGM. I want to thank all of our sponsors, of course. Again, I say it all the time, and I mean every word of it. Our sponsors are our driving force for us to be able to do these kinds of things, and we appreciate their support immensely. I want to thank our team, of course, Adrian, Lee, Jeff, Rich, Lane, Steph, and my IT guy in the corner, Mario. Let's hear it for Mario. Yes, indeed.